So if an Arizona voter were to conclude from your previous answer that you do not favor any specific week limit on abortion, would they be correct?
I support leaving the decision between a woman and her doctor and leaving politicians entirely out of it.
That's her answer. But that tells you everything that you want to know. Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you this Monday, top of our second hour. That's Katie Hobbs talking to, I always forget his name, Major Garrett, right? Yeah, Major Garrett on, I don't know, Face the Nation, CBS. And so just to give you some context, that conversation began because Garrett and Hobbs were discussing Hobbs's claim that Carrie Lake, the Republican nominee for governor, that is Hobbs's opposition here, Hobbs claimed that Lake misconstrued her position on abortion because Lake said that Hobbs supports abortion with no limitations right up until the baby's crowning. And so then Hobbs was asked about it. Every time she's asked about this, she refuses to acknowledge any kind of limitations. And here you can see or hear Garrett is trying to hone in on, okay, where do you fall if you have any limitations? And she just keeps saying, abortion's a personal decision. That's if the woman or the doctor. Okay, well, but that's great. Where, from your answer though, do you have a specific limitation? I believe the decision is between a woman and her doctor. Okay, but we're trying to find out. You are running for governor. You owe an answer to the people whose vote you seek. Can you tell us where you think any kind of specific week limitation, where should that fall in the instance of abortion? I support leaving the decision between a woman and her doctor. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, that's not what we're asking here, Katie Hobbs. We're asking whether she won't answer because her answer is she doesn't support any limitation, period. See, this is the uncomfortable position that Democrats have now found themselves in. And that's why they got so mad at me last week, because I kind of helped highlight that. They support limitless abortion. So they think that this is a winning issue, but ultimately, I think it seeks to further alienate them from some of the demos that they actually really need in order to win. I mean, they always constantly say that, what did Joe Biden say? That if you don't vote for him, that you're not black? Do you think that black voters they're not supporting this kind of stuff? Hispanic and Latino voters are not supporting this type of stuff. In fact, most Americans don't support this sort of extremist position. Survey after survey after survey after survey, you're looking at over 63, 68% in some, 72%. I mean, the majority of Americans they fall around, the 15-week limitation. It feels weird to arbitrarily talk about life this way, but it is what it is. They are opposed to using it as birth control. And that's where Democrats are now starting to trip up. Because when you ask them post-Roe, all right, so here's where we are. Where's the limitation? Where do you think it should be? The only thing that I can think of for Senator Lindsey Graham, the only thing that I can think of as to why he decided to introduce that bill in the Senate was to make it harder for Democrats so that they would have to come out and say that 15 weeks isn't good enough for them. They don't want any limitations. But that's a risky gambit that I don't think he's a good enough messenger to play. But with this, it is, I mean, they all say this. I believe it should be. No, you believe in limitless abortion. Right up into, and case in point, the bill that I talked about all last week, that was co-sponsored by a number of people in the Senate, including Raphael Warnock. That's exactly what it did. Not only did it support all the way up until the baby's crowning, which is insane to me, but it also wanted to reinstate federal funding to pay for it by the removal of the Hyde Amendment. So Democrats are going to have to, in this post-Roe world, explain where they fall on what is or is not acceptable. What do they believe? What limitations do they believe in? None of them will say. Have you noticed this? Every single one of them. There is not a Democrat who has been asked, who has given an actual straight answer on this. They all say the same thing. That's what they all say. Because in reality, their position is the extremist position. They ran pro-life and even moderate on the issue. Democrats out of their party. It was well known. They did this, I want to say back in 2012. No, 2012 is when they booed God. Maybe it was their convention ahead of 2016. I think it was that 2016. They were running out all pro-life Democrats, and any Democrat that did not sign on, even the more moderate Democrats who were like, well, maybe there should be a 15-week limitation. That's unacceptable. I mean, the rules went out. You don't follow along those lines. That's what they have to figure out here. It was just, I mean, what a wild answer. And one of the things that Hobbs did, and Garrett did not touch on, is that Katie Hobbs was against the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. Now, what is that? This is something that actually Barack Obama had voted against as a state senator in Illinois, and Katie Hobbs was against Arizona's version as well. The Born Alive Infant Protection Act is that if there is a child that survives an attempted abortion and is alive, that you have to provide care to that infant, which is at that point out of the mother's body. And the Born Alive Infant Protection Act in a number of states provides that, and she was against it. After the Kermit Gosnell story and all of the testimony of people who worked at that place and the evidence and the photos where you would actually see, I mean, infants past that 15-week mark and babies that would have survived that were on trays and just kind of tossed to the side. I mean, when all that came out in the Kermit Gosnell thing, which kind of reignited the firestorm leading up to the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health in the years before, that really kind of showcased, I think it made Democrats' position harder, because now you have images and a case out there to go along with what their position would be. And it's made it harder for them to justify it, I think.